right, everyone. Good afternoon from Arkansas. Good morning to those of you on the, I guess that's the West Coast. So hello, good day, I should say, and welcome to Project E3 Leadership Academy Communities of Practice. We're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation today and our call. So want to start, as we always do, with the roll call, and we'll start with our states. And if you would identify yourself so we can make note of your participation. California.
Hi, Robin. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you know you've got Priscilla Varela and Araceli Holland here.
Gotcha.
Devin Puente.
Hey, Devin.
Chantel and Nicole from New Orleans.
Hey,
Chantel and Nicole. Welcome.
From Oregon.
Welcome. All right. What about Illinois? Anyone on from Kentucky?
This is Twyla. Twyla Hammonds.
Hi, Robin. I'm Roxana.
Hey, Roxana.
Hi, everybody. Tony Perry.
Hey, Tony. And Chantel and Nicole from Louisiana. Anyone else from Louisiana?
Medan Kundu. Susan is there. Was Louisiana.
Got it. What about Montana? All right, we go on to New Hampshire. Got New Jersey.
Hi, this is Elaine Katz with Kessler Foundation in New Jersey.
Hi, Elaine.
Hey.
New Mexico. And then next is North Carolina. And Oregon. I thought Jane Hagel was on, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Hi,
yes, Jane Hagel for Commission for the Blind from Oregon. Hi.
Good to have you. South Carolina. And finally, Virginia.
Yes, Johannes Goodrich, Department for Aging and Rehab Services.
Hi, Johannes.
Hello.
Did I miss anyone?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. This is Cynthia from Bakersfield.
Hi, Cynthia.
Bakersfield, California, yes.
And Anne-Marie from Fresno, California. Hi.
Good to have you. Thanks for being on. All right, so we've done our roll call and we're gonna turn it over to our first presentation that we'll have today. We're talking about self-employment, and we're very proud and excited to have California Department of Rehabilitation sharing Araceli Holland, who is the, I don't know what SJVD, but maybe you can tell us, Regional Director.
It's the San Joaquin Valley District.
Okay, and then Priscilla Varela, also Regional Business Specialist with California DARS. Will be sharing DOORS or DARS?
Sure.
So thank you both for agreeing to present today, and we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so I'll be starting. Good morning, everybody. My name is Priscilla Varela, and I am the Regional Business Specialist for the San Joaquin Valley District in California. And I will be presenting an overview today on self-employment for everyone, along with my Regional Director, Araceli Holland. So how do we support individuals with self-employment in the state of California? So let's get started. So self-employment, let's begin by understanding many individuals with disabilities dream of owning their own business, and their dreams can become a reality with proper planning. At Department of Rehabilitation, DOR, we can assist our job seekers to better understand the DOR process and our guidelines to become employed in a self-employment setting. The concept of self-employment setting will allow the individual to choose a vocational occupation in a setting where the individual can work as self-employed instead of as an employee. Okay, so self-employment. Self-employment must meet the following. It must involve sole proprietorship and control and responsibilities for decisions affecting the conduct of the business by the individual. It must enable the individual to meet ongoing living expenses and be intended to become a majority source of income for the individual. And it must comply with relevant state, federal, and local laws and regulations. So this eliminates any illegal ventures. If these are all met, then at Department of Rehabilitation, the job seeker and the QRP will work on creating an individualized plan for employment, or an IPE as we refer to it, for the individual. It will then be developed and implemented as soon as the vocational goal and the services necessary to assist the individual in achieving that goal are identified. So self-employment with DOR. So in developing a self-employment plan with the California Department of Rehabilitation, the consumer, the qualified rehabilitation professionals or QRP, and small business consultant all play a crucial part and are essential components. Let me clarify really quick. When I'm stating consumer, I am referring to the individual client or participant. Consumer is just the term that we use. So let's get started. Let me break down the different roles and responsibilities. So the consumer roles. The consumer needs to be responsible on deciding what vocational goal to pursue in a self-employment setting. The consumer is responsible for preparing a summary of the proposed small business with the assistance of the QRP or by referral to other sources such as the local Small Business Development Center. The consumer must prepare a small business plan when more detailed information is necessary beyond the information in the summary, or when such plan will provide additional information that is necessary to identify the nature and scope of the vocational rehabilitation services to be provided. The consumer must identify and obtain resources that may be necessary to establish and operate the proposed small business. And they must decide based on informed choice whether to obtain funding through a loan, a pass, or other sources, or to seek employment in an alternative setting. So next slide, qualified rehabilitation professionals' role and responsibilities. So the QRP is responsible for assisting the individual in deciding what vocational goal to pursue in a self-employment setting. The QRP will conduct the necessary and appropriate assessments. The QRP will assist the consumer in the preparation of a summary of the proposed small business or refer the consumer to other sources such as the local Small Business Development Center. And the QRP will inform the consumer to prepare a small business plan when more detailed information is necessary beyond the information in the summary, or when such plan will provide additional information that is necessary to identify the nature and scope of vocational rehabilitation services to be provided. The QRP will also assist the consumer in identifying and obtaining resources that may be necessary to establish and operate the proposed small business. So next slide is the small business consultant roles and responsibilities. So once the small business consultant is approved by Department of Rehabilitation, their role is to assist in developing business plans and providing technical support. They are to recommend potential funding sources. They may help assemble a funding package. They are to prepare the consumer for meeting potential funders. They can suggest marketing strategies. They may conduct a feasible analysis. They may make recommendations on the viability of the proposed business, and they may provide consultation to the consumer and DOR staff. The business consultant does not develop the business plan, but guides the consumer through the process with expertise and a realistic perspective. So as I stated, one of the roles and responsibilities of the QRP is to conduct the necessary and appropriate assessments. So to provide you guys with the details, I am going to hand over the presentation to my regional director, Araceli Holland.
Okay, hopefully I didn't mute myself because I'm not familiar with this particular platform. I think I'm good. I'm going to interject just a couple of things before I move forward on assessments. The way that our department is set up with the self-employment plan here in the department, and I might go over it, I might touch on it a little bit, but just for clarification, we now have a supported employment liaison at each of our regions, and those individuals are trained on the self-employment process and are out there. They are our local experts that we go to for assistance and for technical questions and follow-up, or to assist also as part of the technical assistance. I saw that that was one of the questions, so I wanted to address that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are seeing an increase of requests for self-employment, especially in this environment when we are having a downturn on our economic environment. But what we found in particularly in our region is that we see more successful opportunities for individuals that have mental health disabilities. In our particular region, we are very rural, and lately we have been doing a lot more self-employment plans for self-employed farmers. So that's a little bit different than the rest of California and is a little unique to us. So I just wanted to share that. So in regards to assessments, we do the assessment for the supported employment setting. We assess the personal attributes of the individual, and we assess the proposed business plan. And we provide assessments necessary in order for us to complete that. That doesn't mean that we put everybody through all of these different types of assessments, but we do want to be available. We want to have available the assessments that are needed in order for a person to be successful. So a self-employment setting is appropriate when it does meet 3 of the criteria. So one of it is that it is consistent with the individual's personal attributes, including the individual's strengths, resources, priorities, concerns, abilities, capabilities, interests, and informed choice. So the proposed business also has to produce sufficient income within a reasonable period after the individual begins operating the business, not to exceed 12 months. And it must be sufficient to pay the necessary ongoing operating expenses of the business and provide income for the individual at or above minimum wage, but not less than the customary wage and benefit level that's received by individuals engaged in the same or similar self-employment. And the third criteria is that the individual is able to obtain all resources necessary to establish and operate the proposed small business, including any additional resources necessary to fund the ongoing operating expense of the business and to support the individual's basic living expenses during that period until that small business produces income that is sufficient according to one of the criteria we mentioned above. So the QRP considers all of the existing information, the summary of the proposed small business, to the extent additional information is necessary, and obtain other information as needed. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next slide. I'm going to skip some of this narrative. So we're on assessment tools. So this is in addition to the comprehensive assessment that a counselor will normally do during that self-employment assessment and in developing an IPE. There are other areas that have to be assessed using the assessment tools as necessary. So an example of some of those assessment tools are listed here. We do use the North American Industry Classification. We look at the proposed business summaries. We look at credit reports. We look at the business consultants' input, small business administration, startup kits. We look at, we might resort to or refer to Service Corps retired executives for input. And on top of that, we also do some of the other necessary assessments when we develop a vocational plan, like the strong interest inventory, the career assessment, the Campbell interest inventory, a system of interactive guidance and information, the COPS and Myers-Briggs indicator. So we're doing the types of assessments and evaluations that we would normally do in developing an IPE, but we also add another level so that we can provide some tools in determining that business plan. So next page. So we do look at credit reports. We do use the 3 major credit reporting agencies, Experiencing, TransUnion, and Equifax. And I'm going to skip through a lot of this, Priscilla. So basically, I'm just going to state that we use the credit reports because we can't, DOR cannot be the sole funding source for these business plans, and they do rely on obtaining and qualifying for other funding. And oftentimes the thing that gets in the way is their credit scores if they're not able to access other funding sources. So we do have to take a look at that credit report. And what we have done in the past is when people do not have enough credit or sufficient credit to be able to leverage other funding sources, we will work with the local debt counseling centers and connect them with them so that we can help them to work on increasing their credit scores. And sometimes we've actually helped them to find interim employment so that they can get some income during this period while they're working on obtaining better credit scores. So there's a lot of different things that we can work with the individual to help them with that credit report because they really, they do depend on that other funding to be able to access funding. Sometimes we have used Social Security past plans. Those have been successful at times as well. And sometimes we've not had to use the credit reports because we are using the past plan as another funding source. So that's been helpful. So next slide. So the business summary and the business plan. So as part of the IPE development, the individual prepares the summary of the organization and operation of the proposed business. The summary is one of the first components of a business plan. We also call it the executive summary. And it does contain, has to contain things like the description of services or products the small business is going to sell, the projected income and expenses for the first year of operation, the number of monthly hours the individual is going to work, the one-time initial costs necessary to establish the business, the individual's resources, a marketing analysis, marketing strategy, staffing needs, such as employees. And again, we resort to a lot of our resources like small business administration and Service Corps retired executives and so forth in order to help us through that process and help the client through that process. So next slide. So a small business plan, it does increase the chance of making a business more successful. The more information is needed to develop utilizing information available in the business summary. So that we just find that the more complete the business plan is, the clearer the steps are, the requirements, the more successful the individual tends to be because it's a very clear path for them. But the business plans are also mostly written for capital raising purposes, thus serving to inform and attract potential investors and to present financial institutions to obtain loans. So the better written that business plan is, the better it is for the individual to secure the additional funding and be able to obtain necessary resources. So the next slide. The elements of a small business plan, I could be here for a very long time, but I won't. The elements of a small business plan basically includes the executive summary or the business summary, the business description as mentioned, the marketing plan as mentioned, and the financial plan and any supporting documents. Department's regulation on self-employment states that all of these items need to be included in the business plan. So it's necessary to make sure those components are in there. So next slide. So in developing the individual plan for employment, we're basically, the vocational goal is the same. So we are developing a IPE, and we are looking at the vocational goal. The only thing that's different is the actual setting. So we're doing what we would normally do as an IPE, but the next component to that is a description of the actual business in the self-employment setting. So we do have to add the scope of services. So next slide. So in the IPE, we are going to add those things that we've already worked on, the assessment results, the technical assistant summaries that we've received. Sometimes there's additional training and education that the individual needs, either to become a better expert in the particular field they're going into, or sometimes they need to go and do some business classes so that they can sustain their own businesses. So whatever other training needs that they need to have in order to be successful, we do incorporate that into the IPE. And we do have to be really clear on the one-time initial costs up front, because we only provide funding for that initial costs, and we need to be clear they have listed everything and that we have those approvals, because what we can't do is constantly amend that vocational plan and the business plan on an ongoing basis. So next slide. So those one-time initial costs can include the occupational license fees, purchasing of leasing of tools or equipment, initial stock and supplies that will not exceed 6 months, the initial deposits required for rental agreements or utility services, and it can also include the first and last month's rent. Next slide. What they cannot include is we cannot include costs that are associated with the expansion of a small business. We cannot include lease or purchase of real property, the construction or remodeling of real property, payment of taxes or tax liens, payment of patent fees or product development. We can't do the refinancing or repayment of debts, the reimbursement or payment of any losses incurred in connection with small business, the purchase of an existing business or a business franchise, the purchase or lease of a vehicle for use in operating a small business, and we can't include employee wages and benefits or funding for ongoing operating expenses. Next slide. So the IPE development, the elements that are included are the things that we've talked about: identifying the self-employment setting, completing the assessments, completing the business summary, utilizing the small business consultants as appropriate. We have to have clear timelines for things that are the goals that we've set in this business proposal. We have to identify the services and the resources, and we also have to make sure that the labor market supports the business. So we want to make sure we have the labor market information in that IPE. So I'm going to skip the next slide. And the IPE content is pretty much what we've already talked about. The occupation needs to be there, the description of the self-employment setting, the summary of proposed small business. So next slide. So some of the more popular vocational supported employment settings that we regularly work with are people who are in the business of cosmetology, not the individuals that are going to go work at Supercut and get paid a wage, but those that are pretty much self-employed and they have to pay for their own spaces or their own business in order for them to be able to work independently. Graphic artists, we do self-employment plans a lot for graphic artists, also for CPAs, and also meeting and convention planners. Those seem to be big ones, but we also, like I said, in our particular area, in the rural area, we tend to do a lot of self-employed farmers or people or businesses in the agricultural settings. Next. So in monitoring the IPE, it's the responsibility of the counselor to monitor the individual's employment in the self-employment setting as specified in the IPE. after the individual begins operating the small business for a period of no less than 90 days and no more than 12 months. So next slide. So the counselor must determine the following: whether the individual is able to maintain employment in the self-employment setting for a period of 90 to 12 months, whether the individual requires additional training or technical assistance to maintain the employment, whether the small business is producing the projected income, and whether the criteria for foreclosure of the record of services has been met. So next slide. I have to apologize. My phone keeps going off and I got to turn it off. I forgot to do it. So the other determinations is if they're having difficulty maintaining the employment, we have to work with them and identify the problems, assess whether additional training or technical assistance might be needed, and reassess whether the supported employment setting is still appropriate based on the new information. So next slide. If it's determined during the monitoring period that the self-employment setting is still appropriate and the additional training or technical assistance will assist the individual in maintaining the employment and self-employment setting, then we'll go ahead and amend the IPE to include the additional resources necessary in order for them to be able to maintain their self-employment. Next slide. If we determine that this supported employment is not appropriate, then we will come back and have a discussion with the individual, and we'll discuss alternative employment settings, and we'll amend the IPE as appropriate. And sometimes, if necessary, we do close the case. So on closures, so the criteria for us, what we consider to be a successful outcome, and this is always the difficult part because not all of these businesses are very clear cut. But what we do look for is that the individual has maintained employment in the self-employment setting for 3 months to a year, and for the individual and the QRP to determine that the employment is stable and that the individual is earning at or above minimum wage, but not less than the customary wage and benefit level received by individuals engaged in the same or similar self-employment, and that the individual and the counselor agree that the employment outcome is the self-employment setting is satisfactory and that the individual is performing well. Next slide. So when we're closing the case, of course, we make the determination if any of the equipment that we have leased or purchased needs to be returned to the Department of Rehabilitation. But most of the time, in a successful outcome, the individual is able to maintain the equipment that we were able to purchase for them. And the next slide, I believe, is just questions that you may have in regards to how we provide self-employment to our consumers. And like I mentioned, this is something that we're seeing an increase on, and we're also taking a look at how we do, how we develop these self-employment plans. We recognize that it's not the easiest thing, and so our counselors do need to have additional training on it. In fact, part of this slide is meant for the future, where we are going to be providing more in-depth training for the counselors in order for them to be more aware of how to develop the supported employment plans. But we really do rely a lot also on our resources to help us and guide us through there. And as I mentioned, our setup now is that we are training our experts or our point of contacts or subject experts in all of our districts so that we have that additional resource. And I think that's, if there's any questions, I think that's all we have today.
Owen, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Now, for the blind agency, they have a provision called Randolph-Shepard Act that they can do business planning and implement that in federal building. But this is not for that purpose, but I understand all other disabilities. How does it business plan in Randolph-Shepard Act and your plan differs, except the federal property?
Okay, so I would love to give you a really educated answer to that, but we do have our business enterprise. It's a completely different program. In the Department of Rehab here in California, we do have our specialized services that is under the umbrella of the Department of Rehabilitation, and our specialized services unit operates the business enterprise program. So that's a little bit different. So this one is just for all of the other individuals that we serve in the field. So I can't really speak too much to the BEP program.
But what is the qualification to become a qualified rehab counselor? You mentioned, beside the master's degree in rehab counseling, what kind of education and training they receive in order to provide guidance for the development of this kind of activity?
So the requirement definitely is that in California, we do require the master's level for becoming a qualified rehab counselor. But in addition to that, we are having to supplement a lot of the training in order to become more aware of how business works. It's part of our business engagement process where we really are having to bring in another level of education and training for our counseling staff. And to be honest, we have a long way to go in being able to be fully trained in that area. We're looking at ways right now, and we do rely a lot on the business consultant that is now stationed at every one of our one-stop centers, the AJCCs. So we work collaboratively with them as well. But we do, we have specialized counselors that have been working on business plans for a while, and we have relied on them for their expertise. But we also recognize that they're about to retire, a lot of them. So we're really trying to do some cross-training. And you guys have any suggestions on how to provide additional training for our counseling staff? We are all ears.
No, this is a very effective program. I know about the self-employment. I want to know, in state of California or your region, what percentage of counselors are engaged in this kind of activity? This is a very important area, that they may not be employed in competitive employment, but they can do self-employment. So do you have any data, what percentage of counselors are engaged in this activity?
I don't have the actual data. I do know that we have at least one expert in each region, and we have about 14 regions.
I see, okay. Now, who provides the initial cost?
For the business plan?
Yes.
The department will look at the one-time costs to start up, but we do want to make sure that there is funding for the continuing of the.
So in your business plan development, you use the NIICS, North American Industry Classification, but does it provide local information, local environment?
We really have to look at, for example, like I mentioned, in our area, we're very rural and we do a lot of farming and we do a lot of ag business. So we really depend on our local universities that are engaged in the agricultural industry, and we do use them as well as for our local data. And for others, we can rely on some more high level or general data, but I think more and more as we're focusing more on the labor demands, we are trying to work with the AJCCs to obtain more of that information.
So you also work with the local small business development program, yes, or your client can get some funding from them too?
They can, and our small business associations, we have some up and down California, and oftentimes they have loans available or grants available for startups as well.
Thank you, good job, keep it up.
I wanted to just, hi, this is Karen from E3. I just wanted to offer Dr. Kundu ask a question about the training. The Small Business Administration funded a program called Operation Jumpstart. I actually went through that train the trainer process. So that's one way of training. I think it's awesome that California is offering this program and it's in-house. I think in Louisiana, if I recall correctly, it's done, but it's outsourced. So, and it may not be as, structured as what you're doing. You also asked about funding for those who are like in rural areas. I did a lot of work with the USDA in getting small businesses funded when I was living in Mississippi. And of course, that's all rural. That could be a grant for a startup. It's through local businesses or either nonprofits, depending on what it is. There are a couple of divisions there that you go through, one for profit and then one for not for profit. And you also have the USDA guaranteed loan program, but again, this is all rural. So of course, with the non-rural urban areas, you have, of course, your normal bank process where you're going to the bank with your business plan, but you also have some entities that will provide funding even if the person does not have the perfect credit score. And what happens is, like, one of those is Axion. I don't think Axion is present in every state. They have to get permission like to come into the state, but they still will provide loans even if they're not in the state. And they use the business items as collateral as long as it's something that has a life limit. I'll give you the example that Axion rep gave us is that like they had some type of sheep farm or something, and the sheep were used for collateral. They realized, hey, that doesn't work because once they, you know, do whatever they do to the sheep for the purpose of the end product, then that's, you know, that's over and done with. So there are many resources out there. So I'm very happy. I'm very passionate about the self-employment.
Thank you. We may reach out to you for more discussion.
Karen, that resource you said, Axion, is that ACCION?
I think it is. Okay. I think so, yes.
Okay, might they provide, I just looked them up, it says they provide microfinance support to organizational people, small business.
Yeah, we have worked with the USDA. They've on a couple of plans that we're working on right now, they've been able to provide the farm equipment for a couple of individuals, and we also actually modified a tractor for an individual to be able to sustain his farm. So we have been partnering up with that with them here locally.
Awesome.
But the rest of them are we're going to look into it. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Araceli, can I add something about specialized services?
Absolutely.
So this is Devin Puente. I'm a rehab counselor, QRP, which we're talking about in Fresno. And I primarily work with specialized services, deaf and hard of hearing individuals. And every year we are required to go to a workshop or like a conference for Senate Bill 105 that we're required to get training based on specialized services. Anyways, last year we had that, and particularly we talked about self-employment with specialized services, and we're currently building a relationship with a local business in the Bay Area of California that provides webinars to deaf and hard of hearing individuals on how to create businesses. They provide tips about budgeting and all the different forms required, the processes involved, and these individuals are deaf professionals that have 3 established businesses. And so they've started providing this service, and currently DOR is working on a partnership with them for them to become a CRP, which is a service provider, community service provider for that type of service. So I thought that would be interesting to share with you all, those that are work with specialized services and those that are just interested in that topic, because it's a underserved population. So the fact that we have this partnership building is huge for our consumers, and it's easily accessed, especially in today's pandemic time period. They can get that training through, I believe, is a program like Zoom. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. I thought it was a really cool program. I have yet to use it, but I'm wanting to. I have a couple deaf consumers that are wanting to create their own businesses. So I'm hoping that I can get them connected with this program so they can get that specialized training.
What was the name again of the program?
It's Yanturn. I can put the link in the chat.
Thank you.
And it's a couple, and they have, I believe, 3 established businesses as deaf professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they are going to be a vendor, or they already are. I can't remember. It was somewhere in that process right now, but I'm curious to see what the continuing partnership will provide to our consumers that are wanting self-employment that are deaf or hard of hearing.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think Elaine had some in the chat, and I think most of them have been responded to. Were there any unanswered? One I was curious about was your success rate. Did you already cover that for the businesses after being set up? After a year?
Yeah, we did not. I did not cover that because what we wrote, I don't know that we've actually been tracking that, but I know that our workforce development section is in the process of putting that information together. And for all I know, they probably already have it, but I apologize. Usually this presentation is done by them and they have all of the information. So that one I can't tell you, but I'll happy to research it and let you know.
It's great information. Sounds like you all are doing a wonderful job in California. Good detailed information. Thank you.
You're welcome. Our pleasure.
All right. So it looks like we're ready for Dr. Susan Flowers Benton, and she's going to share some of the evaluation activities that have been going on with Project E3 and the resources that are available. Well, you're still muted, Dr. Susan.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So thank you, Robin. My name is Susan Flowers Benton. I am an assistant professor at Southern University, and I'm also the PI for the Project E3 program. I took over about a year ago from Dr. Alo Dutta, who many of you all probably knew. So one of the, two things I wanted to talk to you about today were webinars and the evaluation plan. So one of the things that I shared it with Ms. Freeman, the link to the webinar series. I think you all may have heard from RSA. So, and if you hadn't, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. So NCRTM partnered with RSA to create a webinar series. All the TACs participated. And so what we were to do was create this webinar. It's an overview webinar. It's supposed to be about 30 minutes, but I think ours went a little bit longer than that. So we've created an overview webinar that highlighted some of the successes of Project E3 and talked about how it got started and what the goals are and the hopes for to sustain some of the great work that you all are doing. So that is available. It is up and ready. I have shared the link. Oh, I see that Robin has shared the link in the chat. That is the link to the entire series. Ours is, I believe, the second webinar in the series. So it would be the Project E3. It'll be listed under the Project E3 webinar series. So please feel free. We also have, as she's showing on the screen, we have a resource handout. So this also lists a lot of the resources that can be found on the Project E3 website that are available. So please share this widely, share it with people that you think would be interested in watching this or interested in some of the resources. I was joking, but only half joking. I said, even if you think that somebody's not interested, share it with them anyway. So hopefully we can get a lot of views because I think that, we've done some really great work, and I hope that a lot of people get to see that. So that is part one of the overview webinar. And the second thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was the project evaluation. So as you all know, we're getting to the end of the project. And so now it's time to start to look at the impacts that all of your work has had in each of your respective communities. And so what we are hoping to do is create some focus groups with each of the, each state and each community will have their own focus group. And so we're working with the academic partners. So you should be approached at some point in the next few months. One of the PIs at one of the institutions that are working with your state may approach you or contact you about participating in a focus group. All the focus groups will be done online so that you don't have to worry about, you know, safety or anything like that. We'll be doing everything online and virtually. And so in these focus groups, we just hope you share with us. We'll be asking questions about, you know, what you think the impact of the projects and the technical assistance activities have had on the work that you do, on the communities that you're doing the work in. And we're hoping to highlight some of the, you know, some of your successes, because I hear from everyone. We do a quarterly report, so I hear often about a lot of the success that you all have been having in your communities. And so we want to make sure that we're highlighting that for the final report and also in the evaluation portion of this project. And we're also going to be doing another series of webinars. We haven't quite worked out exactly how many yet, but hopefully your E3 partners will be approaching you to maybe participate in some of those webinars as well. So just wanted to let you all know what we were up to and what to be on the lookout for. So this should be happening over the next few months. So it's not anything, and we're trying to make it, we're trying to do this in a way so that there's not a whole lot of burden on you. We definitely want to respect schedules. We know that you all have a lot going on in your communities. And so we want to make sure that we recognize that and that we're not asking for too much. So, does anybody have any questions about anything?
Oh, I just want to mention that in our website, Project E3 website, you will see a lot of resources, particularly the 32 webinars that has been recorded. So you can listen to them and answer the question, and you can get free CRC, certification and maintenance hours, at no cost. And a lot of other research data information we have. So please take advantage of that.
Great information. Thank you, Susan, for sharing. Any questions or comments? Earlier, well, Susan, all the information you shared, I'll go ahead and send a follow-up email and send it out to everyone along with the link that you've given us as well. So again, thank you.
Please watch. I've been told I had a great radio voice. I'm telling everybody that now. So, you know, very soothing. You know, I may have a career in making ASMR videos later. So.
Okay, good.
Well, it's just a good thing to have a second career, something on the back burner. So that's a good thing. I was going to ask Elaine if she wanted to share some information that was put out earlier this week about the ADA 30th year celebration that's going to be on tonight with some big name celebrities.
Yeah, so thanks, Robin. We're part of a group of sponsors that's, it's called ADA Lead On, and it's events that's going to have a celebration of arts, culture, education, and pride. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you go, I'll put it in the chat box too, but if you go to ada30leadon.eventbrite.com, you can register. It's free. All your favorite disability celebrities are going to be on there. You know, you have, I don't know if you know Maysoon Zaid, who is a comedian. You have Jim Lebrecht from Crip Camp. There's Marley Maitland is supposed to be on, a whole bunch of others. And it's going to be live streamed on a whole bunch of venues from YouTube to your computer. And it's the celebration really of the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which is on Sunday, July 26th. So hopefully you'll join in. I'm sure it's going to be taped too. So if you miss it, you can watch it another time.
Sounds like a party tonight, so get ready. Be up half the night celebrating. So sounds like fun though. They did have some big name celebrities and people that are going to be reading, proclamations, music, just a big celebration. So if you do have time, go on to the 8830 Lead On website to get registered and participate in that. Great celebration. Great resources today. Any final comments?
Well, it has been a big party if it was not a COVID-19 situation. Because I attended the 10th anniversary of ADA in DC with Clintons and others, and different places. It happened in Washington, DC. It was a real big celebration.
Yeah.
So I remember that very well. But COVID-19, I think, is minimized that impact. Otherwise, we have a big celebration in DC.
I was just going to say that we could really use the celebration right about now. So looking forward to it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, absolutely. In spite of COVID-19, we can still party.
Sure.
Like a virtual party. If you haven't had a virtual party yet, you're going to be in for a treat. So it can be done, and you can have fun. So bring your Kool-Aid and or whatever makes you feel good and enjoy yourself tonight. Our next project, E3 Leadership Academy Communities of Practice, I was trying to find my calendar. We are going to be meeting August 27th, and we're going to be talking about IRTs on that month's presentation. So we're looking forward to that, August 27th. All right. I think we're done, right? Thank you again to California, Priscilla, and Araceli, and everyone who presented and answered questions. Thank you, Susan and Elaine, for sharing resources as well. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Stay
Chantel.
safe.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
Stop the recording.